You are listening to the Love and Money podcast, and today I have two very special guests. How are you guys doing?
Doing?
Excellent.
How are you doing?
Good. Glad to have you both. So I just like to start out by having you tell us who you are and what do you do.
Go ahead, Marlon.
All right. So my name is Marlon Walls. What I do, I'm a rental car fleet owner as well as a podcaster. So me and Alex, we both have a podcast called Money Monopolizers Podcast, where we have been educating people all about financial literacy and really trying to show them our journey to financial freedom, as well as showing them examples of other people who've also achieved it and showing them how they've done it pretty much starting from ground zero up to where they are today. And so that's kind of just a brief overview of like who I am and what I do. Alex, you can share as well.
Yeah, so like Marlon said, so we have the podcast and we do that. And also I'm a real estate investor on rental properties, flip houses, and also have another business as well in the janitorial industry. And been able to use those to achieve financial freedom and ultimately, build some wealth.
Okay. Sounds good. Can you both tell me a little bit more about your businesses?
Yeah, so like Alex mentioned, real estate is one thing that we both have done like in the past, but and still present day. But primarily for me, I'm in the rental car industry. So we rent out cars. So me and my dad are actually partnered together, and we have a fleet of 11 vehicles currently where we rent them out on a platform called Turo. So a lot of people know that name Turo. There's also another one called Hire Car, but essentially what it is a ride sharing platform where you take your personal car or a car that you purchase, and then you put it on the platform, and then you what you're doing is renting it out to someone else who is looking to rent a car. So instead of them going to Hertz or going to Enterprise, they can come straight to another peer essentially. So it's like a peer-to-peer transaction rather than a big company to a consumer. And so it kind of gives people a level of experience that they wouldn't experience at a larger company.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, you want me to go now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah. So like I said, so real estate, that's kind of, something I'm really passionate about. Buying rental properties, flipping houses, those kinds of things. But it kind of created a plan to be able to buy more real estate through a business, and because business cash flow could be, pretty lucrative if you're in the right industry. And so my business specifically is through I have a house cleaning business that's sort of like a middleman between, house cleaners and clients. So it's not necessarily a house cleaning business in the traditional sense of, I go buy equipment and all these kinds of things. It's more so like a middleman, kind of like Uber or, a lot of these companies today where they're middlemen that pair consumers with people that are, willing to do a service. So it's something similar that I've kind of utilized that similar business model to be able to essentially pair people that know how to clean houses with people that are looking to get their house clean. And using that kind of formula, I've been able to scale that business to, a point where it was enough for me to, leave my job and also continue to use it to continue to invest in other assets.
Okay. That sounds good. So you left your job, Alex?
Yeah, we both did. Yeah.
For both of us.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
So for people who are not aware of financial independence, can you explain what that is? Because some people are new to that term.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to call it financial freedom. So there's levels to it, but essentially what it is the concept of, instead of what we've been taught in the traditional sense of trading in time for money, in the sense of like, we go to a job, we work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 40 hours a week. Instead of doing that for money, the alternative, which is typically what wealthy people do, and not even wealthy people, just people that, operate differently, they have assets and businesses that essentially provide them cash flow that they can now use to cover their living expenses, as opposed to them having to trade in their time, because you only have a finite amount of time that you can actually trade in every single day or every single week. So you're pretty capped on your earning potential. And so in order to increase your earning without necessarily having to work harder or work more, you do that through acquiring assets, because those assets essentially, through leverage of money and leverage of other people's time, essentially generate you more money that you can now use to subsidize your lifestyle to the extent that you want. So there's levels to it. Like level one, basic level one financial freedom is just being able to cover your daily or monthly living expenses, right? So once you're able to do that through your business or your assets, you can quit your job essentially. Because and now that you've quit your job, you can use that freed up time to focus on that business some more, so that now that business can generate more money that can be used to it increase your lifestyle even more. So
Okay. I'm just going to backtrack. Can you explain what you guys' background was, like before you got into your businesses?
Got you. So I don't know how far back you want to go. Do you want to go back to like high school, college? When we like, how far back you want to go with that?
It doesn't matter. You could.
Got you. All right. So I was born in 1996. I can go back that far, but no, I guess just to go back to when me and Alex had met. Me and Alex met in 7th grade. And we were always like, we just noticed that we were both like really, really big competitors in just about everything. Whether it was in the classroom, whether it was in sports, whether it was playing video games, we were competitors in pretty much everything. And so we both were growing up like just competing with each other. And both went off to college. After we graduated college, we were both engineers. So I was a mechanical engineer, he was a civil engineer, and we went into the workforce like 2 weeks in. We started realizing that this is not the path that we really want to go down. So we ended up reading a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that book kind of just really transformed our mentality about how we can build wealth and how we can achieve what Alex talked about, which was financial freedom. And like way earlier than what most people ever will. So we're like, okay, we can set a plan to start investing and start like investing in the real estate was the primary goal in the beginning. We can do that. We can actually shorten our timeline to being able to achieve financial freedom by like age 28, like within the next 5 to 10 years. So essentially, so that's kind of where we set our plans at initially, and that's where our journey really started. And so we started having conversations back and forth every day, just talking about what we were learning. We were reading books, listening to podcasts, and that's kind of when we started our own podcast after just having these conversations all the time and realizing that nobody else in our circle, nobody else that we grew up with had these same conversations. So if we can put a camera in front of our face, we'll be able to share that same message that we're having with each other with everybody else. And that's kind of how the podcast and everything came about as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Engineers.
Yep.
Do you guys mind sharing your ages? Or
yeah, we're both 25. Pretty close birthdays too.
Yeah, like 18 days apart.
25 years old, financially free.
Yeah, that's correct.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So can we go back, like when you first started, what was your first deal like?
Yeah, so for me, I love to look back on this and talk about this story, because I think it kind of played out unknowingly at the time the way it should for a lot of people today that want to achieve financial freedom. Because a lot of people want financial freedom, but they don't understand the foundational stuff that has to actually happen in order to reach financial freedom, right? Because typically what happens is, people graduate from college, they go, they got a salary now. You might be making $40,000, $50,000 a year. You want to go buy a new car, get the nice apartment, all these things. But in reality, what really needs to be happening is you need to be focusing on decreasing your expenses as much as possible, so that you can achieve financial freedom. Because the thing about financial freedom is that the lower your expenses are, the sooner you actually can get to level one financial freedom, right? Because if my expenses are $700 a month, now I only need to make $701 passively to actually get financial freedom. Versus if my expenses is $5,000 a month, I have to somehow generate $5,000 passively now to get financial freedom.
Right.
So, what we did first was really focus on getting expenses down, which was primarily through eliminating your largest expense, which is your cost of living. And that's primarily done through a concept infamously known as house hacking,
Mhm.
right? That's essentially the concept of where you can, purchase a multi-unit property or a multi-bedroom property and live in one of the units and rent out the other ones, right? So if you buy a triplex, you can essentially just 3 units, you can essentially live in one and rent out the other two, and those two, the rent from the other two will cover the mortgage payment for the property, which essentially will allow you to live for free. And so that is the best way that I recommend people to actually get into real estate and also the journey to financial freedom in general. Because it's just a great financial decision to make just in general. Even if you don't want to be a real estate investor, that's one of the best financial decisions that you can make, especially at a young age. So me specifically, my first property that I bought was a house with a converted garage apartment.
Mhm.
Garage apartment, has a kitchen, has living room, bedroom, bathroom, all these things. I live in the garage apartment, rent out the main house for $1,400. The mortgage is $1,200. I get that covered, and now I can actually make money while I'm actually living in my own home. So it's really super practical for a lot of people. It's a little bit harder today to find better deals because the market is a little more saturated.
Mhm.
So you have to be a little more creative than how it was even when we got in, which was 2018. So it seems like that was ages ago, but it's kind of like there's still deals out there to be found. It might be harder to live completely for free, but there's still deals out there that plenty of people are buying today that you can still house hack. So that's the best way in real estate, and that's kind of how our first deals looked back when we were 21 in 2018.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if you want me to answer because I
Yeah,
did this.
sure.
Yeah, I did. I was very similar. Like we both had a very similar timeline too. So, like I said, in January of 2018, we had both read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then we said we're going to start off by eliminating our largest monthly expense in order to start trekking toward achieving financial freedom. So that's kind of our plan initially before just buying the house was saving because we knew we needed a down payment. We knew we needed a closing. We needed enough for closing costs and needed enough to have repairs in case anything happened. If we wanted to renovate the property, and even having backup expenses or backup reserves if something happened to the property while we moved into it. So between January and June of 2018, we were saving like 70% of our income. We weren't going out to eat much. We weren't buying a lot we weren't shopping a lot. And we were just saving like crazy. And these were engineering checks, so they were pretty good at the same time. We were able to put away a lot of money. Thankfully, we didn't have like any family responsibilities or anything like that. So like I said, saving about 70% of our income for 6 straight months. That allowed us to be able to have enough to really get into a property early on. For myself, like Alex mentioned, he bought a house that had a garage apartment. For
Mhm.
me, I bought a 4 bedroom house, just a standard house, lived in 1 bedroom and ran out the other three. And I think my mortgage was like 850. The rent that I was collecting was 1440. It's like 500 a bedroom. And so that allowed me to pay for the mortgage, pay for the utilities, and still cash flow while I was living in that property. And so, but we talk about comfortability versus profitability, because in my setting, that's probably one of the least comfortable settings you can be in.
Yeah.
You're renting out bedrooms in your house, meaning that you share the kitchen, you share the washing machine, you share the living room, you share the driveway, you share everything. And so you're not very comfortable, but that's why you're able to be very profitable, because if you sacrifice comfort, you usually can gain a lot more profit. And that's essentially what house hacking is in general. You, instead of you buying your own personal condo or like being in your own personal apartment, now you have to share you can share a one roof essentially. Like for Alex living in that house with the garage apartment, they're all under one roof. So you may sacrifice a little bit of comfort, but you are able to make more profit. So that was the beginning of our journey. That's how both of our house hacks were our first deals.
Okay, that makes sense. So you both started out house hacking, and
Still are to this day. Both of us are in our house hacks right now. He's in his first one that he had purchased. This is my second one.
okay. And so how did it evolve from there, from that point?
I mean, so there's so many different ways. I mean, that people can really get into real estate after house hacking. or really just in terms of achieving financial freedom, what we did specifically was actually start flipping houses. Just because flipping houses was, a way to generate cash to be able to get into larger asset classes, such as commercial multifamily. Those kinds of things, which, the cash flow can be a little better in bigger properties. I don't want to get into the intricacies of it all, but flipping houses was a good way to generate cash, because essentially, to get into bigger assets, you really have to either have cash, or you have to have cash. It either needs to be your cash or someone else's cash.
Right.
And so, flipping houses was just a great way. So we were able to do that. We flipped, around 10 properties or so from that point of getting our first deal to this year. And again, the strategy's kind of shifted to where we're not necessarily focused on real estate right now, just in the sense of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, just because the business again has the potential to generate a lot more cash flow than real estate. So, I always look at wealth as like a three-sided stool, right? So on one end you have cash flow, which is very important for your freedom, right? On another end you have equity. Equity can come in many forms. It can come through appreciation from real estate, or it can come through appreciation of a business, right? The good thing about business is that when you increase cash flow, you generally increase equity as well. And so, that is one end. And then on the other end of the stool, we have, tax liability. So real estate and business are great ways to get all three of those things, right? You get the cash flow through your, the rent. After you pay all your expenses, you get your cash flow, right? Or if you're in a business, you get, your monthly revenue, and then you pay all your expenses, you should have cash flow left, right? Generally in business, you can earn a lot more cash flow because you're, depending on the industry, your customer base is going to be a lot larger, right? So you, as opposed to if I have a 50 unit apartment building, I know I generally have 50 to maybe 5 additional revenue sources, each of those tenants, and then maybe some, I don't know, covered parking or something like that. But in business, I can get very, very creative to increase revenue and decrease expenses, in order to generate more cash flow. So yeah, that's why we're kind of focusing on business right now, just because the business has a lot more potential to scale, and the business will essentially get you your freedom, but the money from the business is going to be taken not to buy stupid things. The money from the business is taken to buy assets, right? The assets now can buy stupid things, because we all want to buy stupid things. There's nothing wrong with buying stupid things. You just got to make sure we buy it the right way. Most people don't buy it the right way, right? People want to go buy, the stupid things first. Now you put yourself in a hole. Get the assets first. Let the assets pay for the stupid things. Now you can live a lot more comfortably. So that's kind of the plan we're on right now, as far as how we're building wealth and increasing our lifestyle.
Okay. So as far as the businesses go, did you try out different businesses before you decided which one you like?
That's Marlon, you could talk about that.
Yes, to say the least, yes, we definitely did. So one thing about the podcast is that we were privy to being able to interview a lot of different guests who were building businesses successfully. So that's kind of what put that bug in our ear of showing us that businesses will be able to generate the cash flow to buy our freedom a lot faster. And so that's kind of why our initial plan shifted from real estate to business, because that could shorten our timeline to achieving financial freedom. We were like 23 or 24, like we said 28 to like between 28 to 30 was our initial goal for financial freedom, but that's because of real estate. We were going to try to acquire rental units and live off the cash flow, and that would be able to buy our freedom. But when we saw business, it's like, okay, if I put all my time, energy, and effort into business, I will be able to generate enough cash flow from the business to buy my freedom from my 9 to 5, build the business up, and then we'll go and reinvest that cash flow into real estate later. And that's how that strategy shifted. The problem was we had so many different guests that were doing so many different businesses, and we were so new to business in general that we were like, oh, this is great. We're going to just come on, all of it. Just give everything at one time. I'm getting into mobile homes. I'm gonna get into rental cars, cleaning business, trucking, stock options, and you just had, and we were just on a entrepreneurial seizure. It's like that's one thing that is in a book called The E-Myth. Like you just get this seizure where you're like, I'm getting into business. I can do this. Or I got this. So yeah, we jumped into just about everything, and that's kind of what 2020 was. Like the year 2020 was all about experimentation. Um, I recommend people actually to try different things in the beginning, because you don't necessarily know which business works best for you or which business you're the best fit for. But I highly discourage you from trying to scale all of those businesses at one time, because as we can both tell you, we were pretty much stretch ourselves to so thin to the point where we couldn't really scale anything, and everything needed attention. We didn't have multiple streams of income. We had multiple streams of work. And most people get that confused because they think that if you're get into another industry, if you get one mobile home and one rental car, you have two streams of income. They're both probably producing you 100 or 200 a month. And then if something happens any given month, now you're in the negative. So that's why you need to put all your time and energy and effort into one business, grow it up to where it can cash flow you enough. And then, like we said earlier, leverage that into other asset classes like real estate, investing in cryptocurrency or things like that. So that was our experience, and we could talk about that plenty on our podcast too.
Okay. Do you guys teach people how to become financially free? Can you talk about some of the things that you teach?
Yeah, that's all the podcast is about. Financial freedom at the end of the day is, I think, should be everyone's priority, whether you love your job or not. I mean, I don't know why you would love your job, but there's people out there that do, and if you do, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you gotta know, like, that's still not. It's not justifiable to only have one source of income, and it's not justifiable to continue to trade in your time for money for the rest of your life. Because with this time period that we're in, where inflation, the government's literally printing money, and it's like, why would you be working for dollars when they're printing dollars every single day?
Right. That's a good point.
Right. So it's like, you're working for fake money. And so the thing about financial freedom is that, we generally, like to stick to a principle, right? And so it's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple, right? So a 9 to 5 job is where most people start. Great way to start. The best way to start, especially if you have a high income, a high earning 9 to 5 job, right? So the way people should look at their 9 to 5 jobs is looking at them as the stepping stool or their first investor, right? This is your first investor into your business, right? And by the way, business doesn't have to be any business. Business could be real estate. If you want to get straight to the real estate, that's cool too. But know that the 9 to 5 job is going to be the way you leverage that to get to the business. Use that income, your paychecks. It's important to have the personal financial principles foundations, but from there, now we can leverage our paychecks into subsidizing our businesses and building our businesses, right? So investing into education instead of a lot of people preach the mentality, the principle of invest $500 a month into the stock market, all these things, and it's like, cool, I could do that, but like, what is that gonna give me? I could be a millionaire when I'm 65. I mean, that's what you want, cool, but we want financial freedom at an early age. I'm not trying to wait till I'm 65 when that dollar is gonna be worthless. So investing your money today into education and training that you can use to start a business is the most valuable thing you can invest in right now. So from there, you start that business, and now that business, now you and again, you kind of try different things, but once you figure out what hits for you, now you're able to really focus on that business, scale that one up, and scale it, to a good size to where you can, number one, quit your job, number two, live your, this is level. So there's, like I said, there's levels of financial freedom. Level one, quit your job. Level two, get to your dream lifestyle. And level three, if you really want, is be able to buy anything money can buy you, right? So that's obviously like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, those kinds of guys, like that's level three financial freedom. So, but for most people, level two is sufficient. And that's sufficient for me too. I just want to live a certain lifestyle. And so from that, now I can, really focus on investing into assets that are now like real estate going to build me generational wealth. Because the business is cool, business is good, but at the end of the day, you know, if the person that's going to inherit your business doesn't know how to operate your business, then that business isn't going to last very long. So having those assets is very key. So taking the income from the business and putting it into assets, whether it's whatever your asset of choice is, it could be the stock market. I personally don't invest in the stock market. It could be crypto, or it could be the real estate. And I personally think real estate is the best investment for most people, just in general, just for various reasons: appreciation, equity, you know, tax benefits, cash flow, all those things. So that is how I would. That's generally the principle. Like I said, it's very simple. Honestly a science, but it's not easy. That's the thing. Very simple, but not easy.
Okay. Before we get cut off, tell the people where they can find you if they want to reach out to you and learn some of the things that you teach.
Yeah, you could check me out on Money Monopolizers. Check us out on the podcast on YouTube. I don't know, Instagram Money Monopolizers, YouTube Money Monopolizers.
Yep, that's pretty much it. I always recommend going to Money Monopolizers if you want to check out anything, and then you can like find our personal pages just through there. So yeah, that'd be it.
Okay. What is your favorite book?
Man, that's a good question. I haven't got asked that one. We always ask it, but I never asked it. Me personally, I would say probably Cash Flow Quadrant is my Robert Kiyosaki. That's probably, if I had to pick one, it would probably be my favorite, just because that's a very all-encompassing book of fundamentals from Rich Dad Poor Dad, plus some things as far as like you know, having a business versus having a self-employed job, right? It's two different things. So I would say that's probably my favorite book.
And I was thinking for that too, because there's so many. My bookshelf is right here, and I got like 30 or 40 books just sitting in there. So I think my favorite book would probably be The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber.
Okay.
You said
right.
What's
that?
What?
I got a notification that said you had unlimited minutes.
Oh yeah, they just sent me that as a free gift.
Really?
It's a one-time thing only.
Congratulations for that.
So, did you have any last words that you would like to leave for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think the biggest thing I would tell people, that obviously if you're tuning into this, you're probably interested in some sort of, you know, financial prosperity. And so whether that's financial freedom or you just want to get your personal finances in order, figure out what your actual what is your actual goal, and understanding if what you're doing is actually getting you towards that, right? Because like I said before, it's one thing to like, there's so much information out here, it can be information overload. You don't know who to listen to. Should I listen to, you know, Dave Ramsey? I wouldn't recommend that. Or should I listen to, you know, Robert Kiyosaki?
That's true.
Should I listen to Gary Vee? Should I listen to Alex, Marlon? Who should I listen to, right? I would say figure out what you actually want. Find someone that's aligned with that, and pick that. Just pick one thing. There's so many things out, right? You're gonna hear Dave Ramsey tell you not to invest in, you know, crypto or real estate without, you know, getting debt. And you're gonna hear Grant Cardone say the opposite. Pick what you actually want. If you want financial freedom, understand who's best aligned with that. If you want to just live a personal, you know, a good life financially, you want to work your job, you know, go watch your boy Dave, and you'll be able to do that. But just understand what your goal is and who's aligned with that. That's what would be my biggest.
That's pretty much spot on with what I would want to say. My thing is take imperfect action, because a lot of people will get so much information and then they will experience that analysis paralysis that Alex was talking about. Sometimes you may not know your entire goal from the very beginning. Have a general idea about where you want to go at least, and understand that your goal will probably evolve along the way. At least your journey will, definitely. Like you may make out a foolproof plan right today and say, okay, I'm a house hack, then I'm gonna go flip 10 houses, then I'm gonna take that cash and I'm gonna use that to invest into long-term assets. That was our initial plan. Didn't even happen like that. But because we got started, we started gaining new information. The new information then turned into new implementation that we were able to do within our personal lives, and then start putting that into business. And now our plans now evolve, but it all started because we took action in the first place. So start with the end. Start with that initial goal, and then just make a plan of action to get started. I think that's the most important thing for me.
Okay. I like that advice. Take imperfect action.
Yeah.
So one last time, tell the people where they can find you.
Money Monopolizers everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, podcast. Search Money Monopolizers.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for being on the show and sharing your story.
Thank you for having us.